So we'll stop talking about AndrewandTodd.com and start talking about the coronavirus. Good morning, Senator.
Hey, Hugh. Good to be on with you. Sorry to be running a couple minutes late. The president's press conference upends everybody's schedule.
Yeah, it does, and that's okay. It was an interesting press conference. He again downplayed coronavirus fears. Senator Cotton, this is one of those areas with which I disagree with the president, as I have a Washington Post column this morning pointing out they ought to be going to manned battle stations on the information warfare front because people like Iran and China distort the information flow. What's your position on whether we're doing enough to publicize good news as opposed to fake news?
Well, Hugh, it's definitely true that the Chinese Communist Party and nations like Iran are lying about what's happening with coronavirus inside of their territories. China is more worried about censoring criticism than they are responding to criticism. The president is right in his press conference that all known coronavirus cases in the United States are currently quarantined. That's a good thing. What worries me is unknown cases. So, for instance, Hugh, in the month of January alone, 1,500 people flew directly from Wuhan to New York City before we stopped travel from China. That's why we need broader testing criteria, and we need to aggressively push out newly developed and approved testing kits to frontline health officials. Unfortunately, I don't think FDA and HHS are doing that quickly enough. That's the thing that can make a big difference in the short run, though.
When you talk about unknown cases, I had that experience. I actually did some reporting by going to the MGM National Harbor Casino on Saturday and losing money at poker, but just observing the crowds, and they were large, dense, and packed. Those will empty out the moment we start getting reports of the virus in the United States, Senator Cotton, and there are information warriors around the globe who will spread false reports. That's my biggest concern, is that fake news troll bots will try and divide America over this virus. Do you think the president has that high enough on his priority list?
Yeah, Hugh, I think the president is on top of the federal government's response to the virus. Every conversation I've had with the president in the last month has touched upon coronavirus and what we're doing. He's rightly concerned about the economic impact, and he's trying to mitigate that impact for America's families. He's also worried about the kind of disinformation that you can see on the internet, especially coming from China or from anthropologists or these international health bureaucrats who worry more about hurting people's feelings than they are about getting out truthful information, including information about what is unknown, and therefore what precautions we should be taking.
Do you believe the president's fully aware of the 1918 example and how devastating it was when the country did not get true information from the government, and as a result, Wilson lost the confidence of the people?
Yes, Hugh. I know the president is aware of past cases, not just recent ones like SARS and Ebola or Zika, but also those historical precedents, most notably the 1918 Spanish influenza.
And so what's he think about that? Does he really believe that Secretary Azar, who I admire a lot, and Dr. Fauci are good enough to elevate the American response? I want the vice president in charge of a special commission. I want a definitive, real-time response to every story, tracking, news, where is it, what's the virus in the United States like, whether or not there are vaccines, treatments, et cetera. We're not doing that. CDC, in fact, seems to be defining slow.
Well, unfortunately, there is some stubborn, kind of know-it-all, business-as-usual bureaucrats in the government who, again, seem to be more concerned about causing fear or stigma or hurting people's feelings, when in reality, the best thing to do in any outbreak like this is, one, err on the side of caution, and two, be honest with the people about what we don't know or what we know, and especially what we don't know, which gets back to erring on the side of caution.
Now, in terms of, I've got a Washington Post column this morning that argues for a special commission. Have you talked with the president about raising the profile of whoever is his lead spokesperson on this?
I've not talked specifically with the president about that, Hugh, but I do think it's something that, as its consciousness is growing in the United States, in part because of the impact on markets yesterday, it wouldn't surprise me for them to take that kind of course of action.
And a last question. Do you believe the United States military was woefully unprepared in 1918? And it was in the United States military that the Spanish flu, which probably began in Kansas, took its greatest toll among young men because of the nature of the virus in 1918. Do you believe that the Pentagon is prepared for this in a way that you find satisfactory as a member of the Armed Services Committee?
Yes, I am confident that our military leaders are doing everything they can to be prepared.
Senator Tom Cotton, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere, America. Hour number 3 of the Hugh Hewitt Show straight ahead. We continue to follow the markets. I continue to advise you to go to andrewandtodd.com because when the interest rates are down at 1.38% for the 10-year bond, you can borrow to buy a home at rates you've never seen before. So there is good news even among market mayhem. Brian Westbury joins us next hour, and as does Mark Lauder, Director of Communications for Trump 2020. Stay tuned.